Hello guys, and welcome to a new show that I'll be working on whenever I have some extra time, called A Fresh Take. Now, before we get into it, I should apologize for the hiatus. It's pretty difficult to pursue passion projects in the midst of high school, and when the work is over, I just want to relax and play some Super Mario Odyssey. So in general, I leave no time for myself. However, I do have a new capture card that I've been dying to use to take nice footage of my PS4, Wii U, and other HDMI stuff. And so, without further ado, I present this fine video of my thoughts on a game that I expect not too many people will know about, Nex Machina. Now, despite the title's resemblance to Deus Ex Machina, a game that I have no experience with, the games could not be more different from each other. But anyway, let's get into it. Nex Machina was produced by the Finnish independent video game developer Housemarque, and appears to have garnered a decent following with a number of other games besides Nex Machina. A quick look through their website will reveal a common futuristic dystopian theme in their games. Another common theme in their games, including Nex Machina, is the use of voxels to produce incredibly appealing visuals whenever you destroy a wave of enemies or other objects within the environment. Now, I admit I didn't know what a voxel was until I saw it on their website. I then proceeded to look up what it meant and found out that they're basically 3D pixels, tiny cubes that can produce striking figures. Although in Nex Machina you primarily see voxels when the figures are destroyed. I like it a lot. It's like watching a complicated Rubik's Cube fall apart. Fun to watch, upsetting to experience. While we're on the topic of the visuals of the game, I should also bring up the smaller details that really help to make the game engaging. Destroying enemies in certain stages will down some power lines. Using a smart bomb next to a powerful enemy disintegrates the enemy. And as I mentioned earlier, the use of those voxels just makes each kill satisfying. The only complaint I have of the game with respect to visuals is the cutscenes. I'm just not a huge fan of that type of animation. Although I can appreciate the fact that a good amount of work clearly went into those cutscenes.
All humans safe.
The cutscenes help to depict what's going on in the story. The general gist that can be understood through the cutscenes and the levels themselves is that humans have become incredibly dependent on technology. This gave robots the opportunity to take over and begin exterminating the humans. Based on one boss, it looks like they're even using the humans to power the machines. The player controls a mysterious rebel who is tasked with defending humanity against the dawn of the dystopia. In any case, while there are a lot of little details that depict what's happening, the meat of the game is in the gameplay itself. Nex Machina is a top-down twin-stick shooter, whose gameplay is reminiscent of something like Enter the Gungeon. However, multiple mechanics set the gameplay apart from that of others. For one thing, the player is able to shoot simply by tilting the right stick in the desired direction. This mechanic proves to be helpful, not only in reducing the risk of cramping your hand as you would if you were tasked with pressing one of the triggers to fire repeatedly, but also in allowing you to focus on avoiding the ever-increasing flood of bullets. Nex Machina is not afraid to show that it is a bullet hell. In addition to your standard gun, you are able to pick up a number of upgrades to help either absorb or avoid bullets. These upgrades include a shield, a triple dash, which you can utilize to warp through enemy fire 3 times in succession, explosions with your dash, and an extension to your firing range. You can also pick up some weapons that need to charge after use. These include a rocket launcher, good for quickly taking out stronger enemies one by one, a charge shot, perfect for sniping long rows of large enemies, a laser, occasionally helpful in bosses, and a smart bomb, which immobilizes you briefly but also absorbs enemy fire. With one of these sub-weapons and all the upgrades, you are nearly unstoppable. However, if you should lose all your extra lives and use one of your continues, which could be limited depending on the difficulty, you lose all your upgrades. This proves to be a devastating setback if the player is in one of the later, more challenging levels. I found the triple dash such a crutch that when I lost it, I had a very hard time getting back into the rhythm of avoiding fire, since I was left with just one dash instead of 3 successive ones. While stylishly transitioning through levels, you can increase your score multiplier in a number of ways. Besides surviving and killing enemies, you can attempt to save all the humans in a level. You have to be quick when doing so, however, since the larger robots can kill them. You are also able to find some secret humans to get another boost to the ever-increasing score. Speaking of secrets, you can also find the entrances to secret levels by shooting specific objects in the stage. There are also other objectives to accomplish. such as destroying a train of enemies, discovering and destroying communication beacons, and destroying disruptors. All the objectives that each level contains succeeds in breaking up any monotony while playing through the game. That is, if you are able to find anything monotonous and constantly avoiding showers of bullets to the beat of the music.
Multiplier up.
Speaking of music, this stuff is kicking. While the music struggles to achieve an individuality with each track, it always got my heart pumping whenever I encountered a particularly large wave of enemies. It also helped add to the moment of triumphing over those waves. I also really liked the music that played whenever I completed a world.
Maximum weapon. World complete.
It was a nice reward after a sometimes grueling battle with a boss. Let's talk about those bosses. In the same way that the music has a feeling of sameness with each track, the bosses also fail to stand out to me from each other, with the exception of the Architect, but only because of the design of the boss. In terms of fighting them, they're basically bullet sponges. That's the main reason that I don't find them very distinct from each other. However, they certainly succeed in providing a high level of difficulty. They are the ones that make hellish this bullet hell. The bosses even vary depending on which difficulty you're playing on. The difficulty is pretty much the last thing to address when talking about Nex Machina. As stated earlier, each difficulty allows you to fight different bosses in the run of the game. This is where Nex Machina gets its length. A decent run through the game on a certain difficulty lasts around 45 minutes or an hour. So not only will you be playing the game longer to face the different bosses and see the different and increasingly better endings, but also the length is increased in the amount of trial and error in the playthroughs of the increasing difficulties. Now, this may become repetitive to some players, but I found that the increasing challenge and the prospect of better endings was reason enough for me to keep playing. The only reason I haven't completely finished the game with all its difficulties is that it does get pretty difficult. Increasing difficulties results in a smaller number of continues and more lethal enemies. If difficulty's your thing, then so is Nex Machina. The game also features an online mode, which I lack access to, and some local co-op, which would be very helpful in facing the challenges. You can also select individual worlds to play through to get some extra helpful practice before you do a full run-through. The last thing that you guys should know about the game is that it is available on PS4 and PC, so those with either or both have good reason to pick it up. In conclusion, Nex Machina is an intense, challenging, and fun arcade-style shooter. While the story is nothing to write home about, the visuals are engaging, and the gameplay is addictive and entertaining. With music that helps up the intensity and bosses that will keep you busy, Nex Machina ensures fun and substance. And if you're not in the mood of busying yourself with Cuphead, Nex Machina will do the trick.
All humans safe.